On July 7th, 2012, I took a trip to Ireland for a month. Everyone always asks me about the trip, but I can never give them a decent answer. Hopefully this video can explain better than I can. So, Ireland. How do I even describe this place? Well, for one, the country is beautiful. Everything is green. There are a lot of rocks and stones in random places. There's also a ton of cows. Cows everywhere. And let's not forget about the endless supply of Guinness and other Irish beers. But all these things you can easily find out on Google. I attended this trip as part of a dialogue program with my school, Northeastern University in Boston. I was here with 12 other students, who all happened to be girls, and 2 of my professors. When we arrived on the island, we were introduced to a man named Brian. He drove us from the Shannon airport all the way to our house in Ballyvaughan. All the students shared one house. I wasn't sure what to expect at first, but this place was huge. 7 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. We had a kitchen and about 6 different living rooms. Not even making that up, there were a shit ton of living rooms for no reason at all. After everyone unpacked and got themselves settled, a group of us decided to roam the town and do a little sightseeing. We mostly walked wherever we went. The worst part about walking in Ireland is that the roads are all tiny as hell. It doesn't help that the cars are all going a million miles an hour while we are cluelessly moving along. We strolled along these skinny-ass roads until we reached the town. We grabbed some food from the local convenience store and ran into the town cat. After we had a bite to eat, we went across the street to the craft shop. This place had a ton of goods, all handmade from the sellers. We soon left there to head back to the house. After passing out for like 6 hours, I woke up and decided to explore the town some more. Plus, I was hungry as hell. While walking, I checked my watch to see what time it was. It was 9:53 p.m. and still bright outside. On the way to the town, I met up with another student from the house. We went to a pub called Logue's and had some drinks. I also bought myself a sandwich. I actually might have only ate sandwiches while in Ireland. When we finished our drinks, it was time to head back to the house. We had a long day ahead of us. The following day, Brian picked us up from the house at about 10 a.m. We met up with another group of kids from an art school in Chicago. The plan for the day was to get a tour of Western Ireland. We started off at an area that had to do with fairies. Yep, fairies. There were trees all up in the way, so I didn't really even get a good look. We actually got to leave the bus for the next stop. The location was the remains of a stone fort built back in the day. After a brief history lesson of the area, we headed back onto the bus to check out the burn. The burn is a large area of limestone rocks that consumed this whole section of Ireland we're in. These stones were full of fossils from different species, since the rocks originally belonged in the ocean. The stones were safe to walk on, for the most part, but Brian told us to be careful because some areas had caves underneath them. We left there after a while to head to an old gravesite and church in the town called Kilfenora. There were many tombstones and crosses that lined the edges of the old church building. After a quick break at Vaughn's pub, we went to the supermarket to buy some groceries for the house. I was pretty psyched that the supermarket had alcohol. Boston needs to take notes. The infamous Cliffs of Moher were next up on the list, and damn was this a beautiful sight. The cliffs were just amazing. Turns out they were used for all sorts of movies. The main one that caught my attention was Harry Potter. There was also a small castle at the site that people were allowed to enter. I thought it would be cool to go to the top of the structure, which only cost about €2. To my disappointment, the roof wasn't that great at all. €2 wasted. Before we began the journey back home, we made one last stop at another set of cliffs down the road. A few of the students were brave and peered over the edge, looking at the water down below. I tried to do the same for a few seconds, but soon came to my senses, decided it would be wise to move away from the edge. As time passed, we were signaled back onto the bus. The next day, we would visit the Byrne College of Art. This school was pretty awesome for such a small place. We started off in the lecture room, receiving a brief informational speech about the college. We then got a tour of the school, first going upstairs to the library. The 2 computer labs then came next. There was a main lab to work, and a second one for digital art related projects. We finally went to our studio areas afterwards, and were allowed to choose our studio spaces for the next 3 weeks. Then it was time for our first official assignment in Ireland. The girls and I went back out to the burn to work on charcoal rubbings. We had to use the limestone rocks as our surface, while drawing on charcoal on a large roll of paper. Sounds easy enough, right? Except Mother Nature decided to spice things up with a little bit of rain and wind. My work honestly looked like shit. Everyone else's looked great though. This was probably the worst day for me while on the trip. I was absolutely miserable, so of course I went to the pubs with a few others later that night for some drinks. We were given a second assignment the next day, this time at the beach. We were split into 4 groups, with the goal of designing a work of art using the environment. After walking around for a while, then sketching ideas with my group, we began working on our structure. We wanted to create a line of stones that varied in size. The stones were positioned specifically to mimic the form of the waves. We initially wanted to see how the waves and water reacted once they reached our structure. However, the tide never rose. It just went back further into the ocean. Feeling defeated, we went to check out the other group's projects while our professors gave critiques. 2 days later, the girls and I went on a hike up the burn with a man named Shane. He was a pretty funny guy, but told some sexist-ass jokes. Probably not the best idea, considering the group was all girls besides myself. Shane also carried around a bottle of Jameson with him. Don't know why, but I won't ask questions. He even gave one of the girls a shot of whiskey. Anyways, we walked about halfway up the hills before stopping to take a break. Once everyone was okay to move on, we made the journey back down to the roads. We hopped in the van and drove back to the house. We left Ballyvaughan soon after to go to the Éire Islands for the weekend. We took a ferry to the smallest of the 3 islands. We were given an assignment while on the island to take photos of circles in nature, but of course, we just used this time to explore the area. I walked around with a few of the other girls in the group, checking out the island. We eventually came across this pretty dope wrecked ship, which we were even able to walk around inside of. There was also a game of Gaelic soccer going on. The sport is real crazy, combining the dribbling and basketball with the game of soccer. After a few hours, we left the small island to head to the largest of the 3 islands. Once off the ferry, we went to our hostel. I shared the tiniest room in the world with 2 others in my group. There was no way this room was made for 3 people. We left there to meet up with the others at the pub downstairs. Here's where we met my favorite person from the trip, Johnny the Fox. He was outside playing his guitar and immediately made friends with us. He even took a few of us on a short tour of the island, bringing us to another spot to eat dinner and see a live performance. I left my camera at home for the rest of the night, so there's no footage of the late night disco that never happened, and that's probably for the best. The next day, our group had an assignment to visit different locations on the island. I didn't wake up till about 1 p.m., so I had to venture off on my own. I rented a bike from a shop down the street and made my way to the first spot. I met up with 3 of the girls, and we checked out this really cool cliff site. There was an awesome view from the edge of the cliffs. The others wanted to head back to the hostel, but I had one more place to check out. However, I had no idea where it was or how to even get there. As a result, I was lost for about an hour in random fields of stone. Somehow, I saw people in the distance, so I ran over to them to get directions. After about 10 minutes of traveling some more, I found the location. It was a natural-made hole in the ground that kind of looked like a swimming pool, actually. Some of the people from the island told me they've jumped in there before, but I definitely wasn't going to try to do that at all. I just took a lot of pictures, then began biking back to the hostel. When we were back in Ballyvaughan, it was time to give presentations about our final projects. We all gathered around as students presented their ideas while our professors gave their responses. My final project proposal was to create an animation that narrated the entire trip, which can be found on either YouTube or Vimeo. There was another tour scheduled for the next day, giving us some historical insight on the island. Our guide for the day was a man named Gordon. He was a pretty cool dude. We visited several churches and gravesites, learning about the family feuds that occurred in the past. It was actually way too much history for me to remember, and I forgot to bring a pen to write all the information down. Rookie mistake. We also came across a rock path built during the time of the potato famine. The workers were paid close to nothing, and the road actually led nowhere. We visited a few more locations around the island before making a stop for lunch, which just ended up being a trip to the grocery store. The new Batman movie was released in theaters while I was in Ireland. Ballyvaughan didn't have a movie theater, so instead, an actual bat ended up in my room. Yep, a bat. I managed to get it out my face, but it was still trapped inside the house. A few of the girls and I struggled to get this bat out until finally it vanished. No one actually saw the bat fly out a window, but I just hoped for the best. The girls and I took a trip to Galway the following weekend. A few of us were lucky to get a lift into the city from a friend in Ballyvaughan. The other girls in our group were taking the bus, so we had breakfast while we waited around for them. The bus seemed to be running late, so we decided to wander around the city and explore. One thing that I immediately noticed was that the roads were all full of street performers. Street performers every single place you looked. We came across a building that looked like Hogwarts, so we stumbled in there and found a small art exhibit going on inside. The main art festival in Galway was scheduled for later that night. We continued to walk around for a little until we decided to go to a pub for some drinks, a common theme while in Ireland. The place above the bar was covered in dollar bills with messages written on them. I added to this collection by placing a dollar bill with Northeastern written on it. By doing this task, the girls and I met a stag party seated right next to us. A stag party is basically a group of dudes who are out celebrating because one of their buddies is about to get married. More or less, they were just spending the entire day getting drunk. These guys were a blast, and actually almost got kicked out of the pub for causing a ruckus.
Sing us a song tonight, 'cause we're all in love for a melody.
Eventually, they took the party outdoors. I had to eventually eat some food, so I went to the market in town. This market had some pretty cool stuff there, along with some weird things. A majority of the girls wanted to head back to Ballyvaughan around 6ish, but one girl and I decided to stay later in the night. I'm a fat ass and enjoy eating, so I got some fish and chips from a popular spot here, then went by the stream to chill while I ate. When it started to get dark, it was time to head back to Ballyvaughan with my ride. Unfortunately, this is also when the Galway nightlife started to become lively. The next week was pretty low-key. I spent most of the time in the studio working on my final animation. The girls and I finally got a slight break when our professors took us Kelly dancing one night. We had an hour-long instructional session to learn the dance moves. After getting the basic steps down, a shit ton of people showed up to the dance hall, along with a live band playing music. I've never realized how much of a workout dancing was until that night, but it was so much fun. The following day it was also pretty interesting for our group. We took a tour of a cave that was right down the street from our house. I felt like I was some kind of Indiana Jones character or something while in there. There was a bird show happening 30 minutes after we left our cave tour, so we went exploring to kill some time. We stumbled upon a tiny village with like 5 or 6 people in the woods. They used this place to create crafts. Not gonna lie, this place had some pretty sweet stuff. Before we knew it, it was almost time to go to the bird show. When we got there, I didn't really know what to expect at all. We sat on bleachers facing an open field. Then out of nowhere, an owl flew right by my face. The largest owl I've ever seen. During the show, we got to see a handful of birds, including falcons and an eagle. These birds flew around and did tricks for all of us. I even had a bird land right next to me. When all the tricks were done, the trainers let people come out and hold the birds on their arm. At the end of the show, I got a glimpse of the other birds that were in their cages. I even saw a vulture for the first time. The next few days included my 21st birthday celebrations, so the memories are kind of blurry. From what I heard, it was a pretty great time though. August 2nd marked the date of our art gallery show. All the stress from working on our final projects was finally a thing of the past. It was my first real art exhibition ever, so I was shocked when people actually came in to see our works. My animation was being displayed in the lecture hall, but the girls' works were placed in the studio for everyone to see. Each one of them did a fantastic job. We even got a chance to see our professors' works. Now that the show was over, it was time to pack up and leave the house for good. We got on the bus and drove to Dublin, where we'd spend our last 2 nights in Ireland. Surprisingly, my hostel room was not a tiny closet this time, and I actually had space to walk around. Once everyone was all settled in, the group left the hostel to go to a museum down the street. This museum had more gold than a jewelry store, no lie. Each piece of gold was found all throughout Ireland. There were even some battle gear and spearheads on display, with a few dead bodies lying around here and there. We left the museum to go to Trinity College to view the Book of Kells. The line was long as hell, and it cost money that I wasn't willing to spend, so the girls and I wandered around the city for a little bit. Before we knew it, it was nighttime. aka time to drink. I got a tip from someone about a zombie walk happening on Saturday, so I took a trip to the park to check it out. Sure enough, there were zombies everywhere. It made me wish I had dressed up for the occasion, makeup and all. The next stop on my list was to check out the Jameson Distillery, so one of the girls and I began our journey to find it. On the way, we saw this Brazilian street performer who was hilarious at his routine. It was probably the funniest things I've seen in a while, and was definitely impressive when he executed the final trick. After walking around blindly for a few hours, we finally found the distillery. The tour was pretty sick. I never realized how much time, effort, and more time it took to make whiskey. And Jameson is some damn good whiskey. When the tour was over, I was selected to do a whiskey tasting test with the girl I came with. We drank Jameson, Jack Daniels, and another drink that I can't remember. And let's not forget about a complimentary glass of Jameson. With the end of another wild night in Dublin, it was time to head back to America. Some of the girls in the group decided to stay in Europe and visit other countries. I would have loved to do the same, but I missed Chinese food and warm water showers way too much. Ireland, you'll definitely be missed, and expect another visit from me real soon.